The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Mystery. The Flannan Isles sit in the vast and unrelenting waters of the North Atlantic, a cluster of rocky outcrops battered by wind and sea. Isolated and treacherous, they have long been feared by sailors. Ancient legends whispered of strange beings that roamed the island, spirits of the deep, restless souls who claimed those who ventured too far. But in 1900, 3 men were stationed on the largest of these islands, Island Moore, tasked with maintaining the newly built Flannan Isles Lighthouse. Then, one night, they vanished, leaving behind a mystery that has endured for over a century. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse was completed in 1899, built to protect ships from the perilous waters around the Hebrides. It was a lonely post, manned by rotating crews who spent weeks in near-total isolation. The keepers, James Duckett, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur, were experienced men, responsible for keeping the great lamp burning, maintaining the building, and recording their activities in a logbook. On December 15, 1900, something went terribly wrong. That night, the great lamp of the lighthouse failed to shine. Passing ships noticed but assumed it was due to bad weather. It wasn't until December 26th that the supply ship Hesperus arrived and found the lighthouse dark, with no sign of the keepers. Captain Harvey sounded the ship's whistle and fired a flare, but there was no response. Relief keeper Joseph Moore was sent ashore. As he climbed the steep path toward the lighthouse, an overwhelming sense of unease settled over him. The door stood slightly open, and inside everything was eerily still. The kitchen table was set with plates of food, but the meal had gone cold. A single chair lay overturned. The fireplace was cold. No fire had been lit for days. The keepers' oilskins were missing, except for one, suggesting that one of the men had left without proper protection. The logbook contained strange entries. On December 12th, Marshall wrote of severe storms, the likes of which I have never seen before, and noted that MacArthur, an ex-soldier known for his toughness, had been crying. December 13th described ongoing storms, though weather records indicated calm seas. The final entry on December 15th read, "Storm ended, sea calm. God is over all." After that, silence. The search party found no sign of the keepers. The eastern landing dock had damage, a railing bent, mooring ropes torn away, leading some to believe a rogue wave had swept them into the sea. But why had all 3 men been outside at the same time? Other theories emerged. Had a violent storm driven them to madness? Had MacArthur, known for his temper, attacked his fellow keepers? If so, where were the bodies? There were no bloodstains, no signs of struggle, just an empty lighthouse frozen in time. Some believed the men had been swept into the sea while securing supplies at the dock, but no wreckage or equipment was ever found floating in the waters. Then there were the older, darker whispers. Local fishermen spoke of spirits that roamed the island and voices carried on the wind. Some believed the men had been lured into the sea by an unseen force, perhaps the blue men of the Minch, mythical sea creatures said to drag sailors to their doom. Others speculated that something far stranger had claimed them. Some sailors even reported seeing eerie lights above the island around the time of the disappearance, glowing orbs that moved erratically against the night sky. The disappearance of the keepers was never solved. Official reports ruled that the men were likely swept out to sea, but that explanation left too many unanswered questions. No bodies were ever found, no distress signals sent, no clear evidence of a natural disaster. The empty lighthouse stood as a silent monument to the unknown. Eventually, the lighthouse was automated, its human keepers removed entirely. Today, its great beam still sweeps across the waters, but there is no one inside to tend to it. The island remains as desolate as it was on that fateful December night in 1900. No trace of the missing men was ever found. No bodies, no explanations, only an abandoned lighthouse, a cryptic final log entry, and the endless whisper of the wind over the waves, a voice that, perhaps, still carries the echoes of the vanished keepers who once called the Flannan Isles their home. The disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, March 8, 2014. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 departed from Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:41 a.m., bound for Beijing. It was an ordinary red-eye flight carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew members. The Boeing 777-200ER was one of the safest and most reliable aircraft in the world, flown by an experienced captain, Zaharieh Ahmad Shah, with over 18,000 flight hours. The flight was expected to last just under 6 hours. At first, everything was routine. The aircraft climbed to cruising altitude at 35,000 feet, and the crew exchanged brief communications with air traffic control. At 1:19 a.m., as the plane prepared to enter Vietnamese airspace, co-pilot Fariq Abdul Hamid made his final transmission. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Moments later, the aircraft's transponder was switched off, cutting off communication with air traffic control. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared from civilian radar screens. For the next several minutes, the flight was completely invisible to commercial tracking systems. However, military radar still picked up the aircraft. In a move that baffled investigators, MH370 made a sharp turn back toward Malaysia, heading westward. The plane then deviated again, flying northwest over the Strait of Malacca before vanishing completely over the Indian Ocean. By morning, authorities realized something was wrong. The aircraft had never checked in with Chinese air traffic control. No distress call had been made. The plane had simply disappeared. A massive search operation was launched, initially focusing on the South China Sea. But as more data surfaced, it became clear that MH370 had traveled far beyond its intended route. Satellite data provided a chilling revelation. MH370 had remained in the air for over 7 hours after losing contact. The plane had taken a strange, meandering path before heading south into the vast, uninhabited expanse of the Indian Ocean. Despite an international search effort spanning 120,000 square kilometers, 46,000 square miles, no wreckage was found for over a year. Then, in July 2015, a flaperon, a crucial part of the wing, washed ashore on Réunion Island, thousands of miles from the suspected crash site. Over the next few years, more debris turned up along the shores of Madagascar, Mozambique, and Tanzania. Some pieces were confirmed to be from MH370, but the main wreckage, the fuselage, the black boxes, the passengers, remained missing. Theories emerged. Some believed a catastrophic mechanical failure had incapacitated the crew, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. However, this did not explain why the transponder was manually turned off, or why the plane had changed course so drastically. Others pointed to pilot suicide. Investigators scrutinized Captain Zahari's background and found he had simulated a similar flight path on his home flight simulator. Some believed he had deliberately depressurized the cabin, causing the passengers and crew to lose consciousness while he guided the plane to its doom. However, Zahari had no history of mental illness, financial troubles, or grievances that could support this theory. Another theory suggested hijacking. Could terrorists have taken control of the aircraft? No group ever claimed responsibility, and no ransom demand was made. The lack of communication contradicted typical hijacking scenarios, where demands are usually broadcast. Some speculated about military involvement or a cover-up. The aircraft had flown past multiple military radar stations without being intercepted. Was it possible that MH370 had been shot down, either accidentally or deliberately? Some even theorized that the plane had been remotely hijacked via satellite and flown to an undisclosed location. The most bizarre theories ventured into the realm of the unexplained, ranging from cyber hijacking to alien abduction. Some internet sleuths believed the plane had been pulled into another dimension, never to be seen again. In 2018, after spending $160 million on the most expensive aviation search in history, authorities officially ended the hunt. The wreckage had not been found, and the disappearance of MH370 remained unsolved. Families of the missing passengers continued to demand answers, frustrated by the lack of closure. The mystery persists, haunting the world of aviation. How could a modern aircraft equipped with advanced technology simply vanish in an era of global surveillance? The Indian Ocean remains silent, keeping its secrets in its depths. To this day, no one knows for certain what happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. No bodies, no black boxes, only fragments of metal washing ashore, a reminder of 239 souls lost to the unknown. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was more than just a pilot. She was a symbol of courage, defying the odds in an era when aviation was still in its infancy. A pioneer and record breaker, she had crossed the Atlantic alone, pushing the limits of human endurance. But in 1937, she set out on her most ambitious journey yet, a flight around the world. It was supposed to be her greatest triumph. Instead, it became one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Earhart's aircraft, a Lockheed Electra 10E, was a sleek, powerful machine, custom-built for the grueling flight ahead. Alongside her was Fred Noonan, a skilled navigator who had charted routes across the Pacific. Together, they planned to travel 29,000 miles, crossing vast oceans and uncharted territories. By June, they had already completed most of the journey, stopping in South America, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. Only the Pacific remained, the most treacherous part of the trip, where vast stretches of empty ocean separated the islands they would have to reach with precise navigation. On July 2nd, 1937, at 12:30 a.m., Earhart and Noonan took off from Lae, New Guinea. Their destination was Howland Island, a tiny strip of land barely visible amid the endless ocean. The U.S. Coast Guard vessel Itasca waited near Howland, prepared to guide them in, but something went terribly wrong. As they approached Howland, radio transmissions became erratic. At 7:42 a.m., Earhart's voice crackled over the radio. "We must be on you, but cannot see you." The Itasca responded with signals, but Earhart seemed unable to hear them. Aware that fuel was running low, she sent another transmission at 8:43 a.m. "We are on the line 157337, running north and south." Then silence. The plane had vanished. A massive search effort began immediately. The U.S. Navy and Coast Guard combed 250,000 square miles of ocean, but there was no sign of the aircraft, no wreckage, no distress signals. It was as if Earhart and Noonan had been swallowed by the sky. The official explanation was that Earhart had run out of fuel and crashed into the ocean, but many found this unsatisfying. Why had she not seen Howland Island? Why had she not used her emergency life raft? Theories soon emerged, each more haunting than the last. Some believed that Earhart and Noonan had crash-landed on Gardner Island, now Nikumaroro, 350 miles south of Howland. A week after their disappearance, radio operators reported hearing weak distress signals. Perhaps Earhart desperately calling for help. Navy reports at the time dismissed these signals as hoaxes, but some of them were detected on frequencies that only Earhart's plane could have transmitted. In 1940, British explorers found a human skull, a woman's shoe, and remnants of a plane on the island. The bones were sent for testing but mysteriously disappeared before modern analysis could be performed. Others believed Earhart had been captured by the Japanese. At the time, tensions between Japan and the US were rising. Some speculated that Earhart, lost and off course, had been forced to land on a Japanese-held island, possibly Saipan, and was taken prisoner. Witnesses decades later claimed to have seen a white woman in a military camp, possibly Earhart. A grainy photograph surfaced in 2017, supposedly showing Earhart and Noonan in Japanese custody, but experts quickly cast doubt on its authenticity. One of the strangest theories suggested that Earhart had survived under a new identity. A woman named Irene Bolam, a New Jersey banker, bore a striking resemblance to Earhart and had mysterious gaps in her past. Some believed she was Earhart, having assumed a new life after a secret government arrangement. However, Bolam denied the claim, and no concrete evidence supported it. More recently, technology has provided new clues. A metal fragment matching Earhart's plane was found on Nikumaroro, reigniting theories of her survival as a castaway. In 2018, forensic analysis suggested that the lost bones on the island were likely hers. Meanwhile, deep-sea searches have scanned the ocean floor, hoping to locate the wreckage of the Electra. Some believe the plane remains hidden in the depths, its final resting place untouched for nearly a century. Despite decades of searching, Amelia Earhart's fate remains a mystery. Did she crash into the sea, her plane resting in the abyss? Did she survive for days, stranded on an empty island? Was she taken by forces unknown? What is certain is that she vanished into legend that day, leaving behind only echoes of her final words. "We must be on you, but cannot see you," lost in the vastness of the Pacific.
Thanks for watching. Come back soon for more dreaded whispers. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.